is kind of a Django app to deploy Django apps. And so long term, how this is going to be used is you jump into, say, new instance, and you start by just saying, okay, we're doing a project for Ecolab right now. I might say Ecolab production. And basically, I'm going to spin up two versions of these exact same server, one for production, one for staging, and then we manage it all right through here. So once it's deployed, we'll have Git tags right here, and now we can deploy via Git tags. So we're basically working on one branch master, and so we don't actually have to use production branches because we're controlling it all through this interface. So we compile config, database settings. Okay, we're going to kick error history out here. And then this is an authenticated portal, so we're going to be able to see which employees are making pushes, pulls, rollbacks, updates. And so this is just a quick preview of the styles. But this will actually launch so you would go in, make your new instance, map in your config settings right here in the interface, like tab by tab at a time. So when you're setting it up, you're actually mapping in config settings. And so this is kind of just painting a picture of what the UI is like, but now you're basically opting into all your config settings. So rather than choosing defaults, if you want to go with the default, you opt right in on the web interface. So now front-end developers can effectively deploy websites and start to understand what's going on in the system stack underneath. So if I jump back to the presentation. So what are Django Web Apps, I guess, in general? So Django Web Apps are a model view controller structure. So basically, the database is separate from the views that are actually rendered on the pages, and then templates that those views are structured within. So this lets you do really loosely coupled code. And these MVC frameworks are really popular. Ruby on Rails and Django seem like the main two moving forward. Git and GitHub version control. So Git allows you to kind of share code bases across your team or across open source projects. And it's a little bit different from a traditional kind of version control system because it's taking snapshots rather than looking at differences. And that's really how it works with the deployment app, is because we're Git tagging a snapshot, and when we want to deploy that snapshot, we just run shell scripts through our web app that will actually just load, hard reset to the Git tag, and then we can deploy that code base. So now we're effectively going to be able to deploy our code bases with no shell scripts, or no shell at all, just through shell scripts. So the comparison here on traditional VCS versus Git, you can see it's really taking snapshots, and then it doesn't actually write the files again. It just makes symbolic links if the file is the same. And so kind of how it works is it's got these commit IDs, and so I know a lot of you know all this. I'm just going to kind of try to breeze over it quick for people that don't. And so kind of how the structure works is every time, so say you made a file change from snapshot A to snapshot B. Well, snapshot B has this commit ID 34AC2, and they all point back to a parent commit, so they just keep going back up the chain. And so this is a really effective way to share code between different people, because we can both be starting on this first branch, and we can branch off and make changes, and they both all refer back to where we split off. So, and then it just merges in a pretty smart way. So I guess the typical workflow is you check out the project to local, and you're staging and committing files to your branches, your local branches, and then you merge those in to the master, which is our remote repo on GitHub. And then now we're using the Botto API, which is the Python Amazon Web Services API, to basically spin up a new instance, and then using Fabric, which is SSH, arbitrary Python commands over SSH. So basically we use Botto to spin up the server, and then we use Fabric from our deployment web app to execute arbitrary commands on the right server. So Fabric will launch an SSH tunnel, and then we do our shell scripts through Fabric. So a typical Git workflow, though, you kind of just stage and commit your changes locally, and then that's how you kind of share. Okay, I'm going to skip down here. So I kind of want to get some back and forth, maybe. What are you guys most interested in kind of around this. Amazon, I can talk about kind of Amazon Web Services, more Git stuff, or kind of future the deployment app.
I was wondering, are you using branching in your production side, or are you just branching for developers, people using in their local Git repositories, or are you using branch for production repository or delivering knowledge?
Yep.
What's your strategy?
Yep. So this is kind of this screenshot kind of helps describe a little bit how we do it. It helps to get the idea across, but really we just use one branch master. And so what we do is we've got Git enforce policy around our branch master. So we don't usually allow people to check commits directly into master. You make local topic branches and merge branches into master. And then whenever we're ready to deploy a version, all we're doing is Git tags. So what a Git tag is if we think here, all these dashes, that's maybe all our topic branches that are getting committed. So I made a bunch of changes and merged those into master. We'll now say, OK, after these 4, we're ready for our next release version. Well, I just Git tag this commit, and then we're controlling all our version control through the deployment app web interface. So we don't actually have a production code base, and you can't tell from the code base what version is production. You can only see a ton of versions. And so actually, so you can see here is where all the Git tags are going to be on this deploy tab. So it's going to say, OK, here's the current version. And it's just, we'll have a little button here to update, and it pulls in, and then we map in there. We say this is the stable version, this is the production version, and this is the deployment. So you can see here, yeah, stable rollback. So this is kind of, so now now we've got that code base. It's Git tagged across the entire thing, and what we do is just deploy it twice. And so now we've got two of these instances. This is maybe Ecolab production, and maybe we make another one Ecolab staging. Really, I can deploy the production code base to both, but I just don't because I know that's I'm doing the version that's deployed, version that's staged. All that is controlled through this app. So this app is what we're building up and iterating and trying to get, just add a little shell script. Generate a key pair. We'll probably do that. Just whatever we can think of that's going to make it easy and a couple button clicks so people who are kind of scared of shells, front-end developers, are going to be able to kind of make a transition into doing a lot of this stuff. So I'm not sure. Did that really answer your question? OK, let me try to. Yeah, so that's a good point. And it's not something we're just kind of getting into our super workflow here, so it's not a problem we've run into yet, but I'm sure that definitely seems like something. So we get new features developed, and now there's a random bug in the feature 2 weeks ago. Git flow? Yeah. I've not. No.
It's a branching strategy to solve that problem.
OK.
And there are some scripts that they've implemented on top of it, so you can just kind of do some Git commands to automate branch management. But all it's really doing is just managing branches for you. So, and that actually is very similar to what you're doing. This looks just like the master branch in Git flow. But on top of that, it has hotfix branches and feature branches and a separate development branch.
OK.
That'd be something to look at. If you integrated it with this tool,
Definitely. Cool. Yeah, and as far as this tool goes, so what it is it's based off of an open source project here, kind of funny logo, Fabulous. And so you can see this is actually working, and so we've had stuff work, and so we tried to add Git tags, and we're adding some other stuff. But this will actually go check out this Fabulous project, and in Django admin, it'll spin up an EC2 server in 2 minutes. And so this is the inspiration for the project. We say, okay, we can spin up EC2 servers. We can run shell scripts. Why are we limiting it to just spinning up the server? We can really control everything through our deployment interface that way. So Git flow, I'm gonna check into that. But if I jump back to, and we've gone through a lot of iterations trying to get to what is a good development cycle, how can we most effectively use Git. So I'm really eager to hear those. And we actually switched to a 3-digit version numbering, so we've got minor and the third one is bug revision releases in actual the numbering. But I can definitely see that problem emerging, so I'm going to look into that. Okay. So this is the Git tagging. So this is one feature a lot of people probably aren't too familiar with unless you're tagging versions with this. But what Git tags do is all it's doing is taking a commit ID and associating a name with it. So the same way head is associated with your last commit, you can associate a name just with a Git tag. And so this Git tag -a argument will allow you to name the last commit. And so this is what we're doing for version releasing, is we're just tagging as often as we think it's useful. All right. So I'm going to guess I stopped at some.
So I just had a question about Amazon integration.
Yep. Well, that's something we think we're doing one EC2 instance per, that's just we can control with the shell scripts. And we want to keep that loosely coupled for a while. So yeah, and with how cheap it is, we're going to do one EC2 server for Ecolab staging, one EC2 server for Ecolab production. But for some of our bigger sites later, we're probably going to do, maintain an AMI and do auto scaling. So it's really just what you want to do with the shell scripts. So I guess I'm going to stop for questions because I know I've been kind of all over the place. So is anyone? So we're all Python. That's like our big language. So we do everything with Python APIs. So Django is 100% Python. We deploy with Nginx and GUnicorn. GUnicorn is 100% Python WSGI client. And so we use Python for everything because it's so accessible. I don't know if that. And so that's our big, we don't even consider ourselves tied to Django. We're tied to Python and the future front-end languages, HTML5 and jQuery. All right. So I guess I can talk about, I'll just get what people want me to talk about. I can talk a little bit more about Git stuff or Amazon Web Services. If people want to know about Amazon Web Services. Okay.
I'm trying to, so when you're pushing the tag for the version we want to deploy, the primary channel is Fabric.
Yep.
Automating all of it.
Yep. And so we're just creating shell scripts in Fabric, and then you click a button and it runs the script. So it's.
So then, like it'll do like a Git clone and then check out on the instance itself, or do it push using rsync? Like is it a pull or a push?
I'm not sure how he's got it set up in there. I'm kind of the sysadmin too, so I'm not exactly sure how the shell script that shell script is working, but we're working on them, iterating them. And this isn't live for our production sites. We're still deployed with Apache, so this is for the future. This is our long-term scaling solution. This is how we want to manage it. And that's the great part is the instances are loosely coupled. And so, we're doing very Pythonic just this whole instance is, one object, one class, and, all the shell commands and stuff are just model methods. So it's very convenient as far as, okay, all the settings are with the instance, and that's kind of how we structure most of our apps here. We just kind of search out. I like to think of it like a Gmail architecture. You kind of search your Gmail messages in your inbox. You open your message, and it's open. You can't do anything to it. and then you click compose, and you can send a message. And we like to think of ours as kind of a good way to keep things loosely coupled. Okay, you can only do one command at a time, and then with the shell scripts, okay, some critical error happens. Well, we need to fix it. We'll just fix it in the shell script for next time, and it's a constant iteration. This is just a spot where it's like, once we get it up to speed, every time we think of a cool new feature, we can just quick pull it in with the Python API. And so that's the kind of end goal of this project. And we are willing to share the project. We do have a lot of proprietary code, but we'll license it for free if anybody is interested. And then the Fabulous is a great one to look at to get started too. So how many people are familiar with Amazon? Go ahead. Google App Engine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think if it was like just me, I would do Google App Engine, but we thought Amazon is a lot better for. It seems to me, Amazon seems like the clear choice for the future. I think they're gonna run into anti-competitive before they're gonna run into anything else, because these services are really, really amazing. I know on the Google App Engine, we just didn't want to get locked into that box. So we think an app like this now, we've got the whole Botto API, and really I'm all in on Amazon Web Services. So any Amazon Web Service we can use, I'm planning on using. Just a couple so far has been kind of ridiculous. The EC2 instances, 10 years ago, a big rack of servers and a full-time sysadmin, and now, $32 a month. RDS, do I want to hire a database administrator, or do I want to pay, $80 a month to Amazon? It seems like clear choices to me.
Are you guys planning on just sticking with one backend service? So one of the things that occurs to me is that the tool looks like it's really focused more on developers and their needs.
Yep.
Whereas, I'm not necessarily going to be able to pitch to a client, you need to be on Amazon. We may be able to we may have to put them on Dreamhost, on VPS, we might have to put them on Web Engine. Our hosting decisions aren't necessarily driven purely by technical needs. So, at the same time, if this tool is complete, obviously, it sounds like it would be really cool to use, but we might have to use it with multiple backends. So, have you guys given any thought to multiple backends?
Well, yeah, and this isn't a product of ours. This is just an internal tool. So our products are web and mobile applications targeted at bigger companies, kind of super tech-averse. We do everything for them. I'd say, I lost my train of thought a bit. What was?
Well, multiple backends, so
yep.
Post, Google App Engine, envision wanting to use this tool, wanting to use all of those backends.
Well, we've actually got something good from that perspective. So what you can do is you could take a portion of this and flip it out for something besides Django, because if we look at these config, okay, well, how I'm doing this is these are the configs we have, and we're actually mapping all our configs right there, and we're going to just attach the config objects. And so you could just switch it up. Okay, even Django's right in here. You just switch up configs and that's really the strategy we're going to try to deploy our servers with, is really not arbitrary commands during setup, as much config as we possibly can, and then just putting the configs in the right spots and setting them up. And so you definitely could use this with other backends, because you'd probably want to stick with Django, I guess maybe Python to get it, because it's all set up, but you could just basically replace the shell scripts, and that's all you really need to do. It's just installing a virtual environment on an EC2 server, and you just, instead of setup for Django, set up for whatever your platform is. And so yeah, if this was being targeted as a commercial tool, that's definitely what it would try to. Oh, and then with these configs, try to just get every config you can in here, and try to get a community of people to crowdsource those. I don't know if that exists. If anybody knows of stuff like that existing, where people are crowdsourcing web configs in kind of full stacks, because I've found that to be a pretty difficult area, where it's okay, you can get really great information on each separately loosely coupled piece, but besides a blog post or something of a specific, how it all ties together, it seems like hard to find those resources. And then if you do, do you want to deploy in the exact way that this guy over here deployed on Google App Engine? And so we're trying to just kind of figure it all out. So it's an open source web post?
Software you can install on your hardware so you can make it like
Yeah.
then you could, that would be, that's cool. I think that would between your own
Well, and if you want to crowdsource things like this, you want to have API and well-documented instructions on how to create recipes, and then there are frameworks like that out there that exist. Follow something like Homebrew for Mac, deployment of commands. That's got a very nice recipe formula structure, and people submit to that. And other things like Capstone and other deployment type tools out there. Look into that type of thing if you're thinking of expanding. What they've done is made it so that it's easy for people to develop for them. So if you want to go that direction, I would, in getting other people to help out, make your recipe something that's very coupled.
Yeah, and we were thinking about just making one of these main apps, like commands, and we can piece them together. Just how you picture how you add a user in GitHub, just little blocks pieced together. We could put this, and then and we could have a helper, because that's kind of what we eventually want to get to, is get our all the documentation in here too, because you just put a link and no one reads it, but if it's right in front of you. So I'm not sure if that.
Well, there's other things like how is the formula or recipe packaged? Is there a straightforward way of doing it? Is it just one file with description of the command?
Yeah.
Have them submit that for to be able to pull up your package on their server, and then as long as they drop their recipe in the directory X, it will now show up as another option on the side.
Yep.
I think GitHub for Homebrew, they just have like one GitHub repo and some protocol. Yep. You forfeit all of your configs were in a forkable GitHub, then people could really easily change the pull request. So, here, use your tool, but we put it on Google App Engine, here's the config file. And you guys can pull that in, and then everybody else who have forks would then get notification that there's a new config available. I think that's where a tool like this could be a lot more powerful if it had crowdsourced too.
Yep. Yeah, because then you're getting what's really the best. Okay, this is run on, and then people put their rep on there, like this is running on this is seeing this many users, that type of thing. Yeah, no, that's definitely something. This is really low priority for us, and that's kind of why it's, we had a lot of stuff come up this week, and so I didn't quite, when I put the presentation in, I didn't quite get quite as much code done on this as I'd hoped, but just try to get the idea across. So I guess the main things in the presentation I've got is Amazon Web Services, Git. Do you guys want to talk about, I've got more Git examples of some super useful Git stuff. Sure. So Amazon Web Services, we use that. We basically started using a different hosting provider, and then we started using one EC2 server. And then we really are just going to go all in on Amazon because it's really, really cheap. I can pull up actually. So you can see here, this is our March billing, $198. It's just a joke. Like we don't have an obscene amount of stuff, but we don't expect to have more than $5-10 grand in hosting fees this year. So it's just a almost a non-thought because I'm also coming from an accounting background, and so this is really amazing for me just to be able to kind of figure things out when there's already a button there. So the main ones we're using right now is RDS, EC2, and then we're also using Simple Mail Service, SES. And then there's another reason why I think Amazon is a big future is because there's like the Botto Python API. There's APIs for all the Amazon Web Services. And then just based on the fact that they are the juggernaut, they are by far the most popular amongst emerging cloud, we get stuff like Django-SES, where I wanted to send DKIM email, and I went and found Django-SES and mapped about 8 settings into the config file and had DKIM email completely working in about 20 minutes. It's just, go sign up for SES, go add a name to the supported user, use M2 crypto to make a key pair, and put the public key in your DNS, and you're done. It's just stuff like that, and I know it's just going to keep going. And as far as like Google App Engine, well, it's not too far before before Amazon's got Django on Elastic Beanstalk. So, we're trying to expand. If people have familiarity with some of these other services, we think we're going to use. So S3 is kind of storage, long-term storage. We're using S3 too. I'm not exactly sure in what capacity. Elastic Beanstalk. This is the equivalent of Google App Engine for Amazon Web Services. And I know I got an email, they just had some new language added to that, not Django. CloudWatch, so this is the type of stuff that's also going to be very useful. They've got a ton of servers running, so you can machine learn on what is malware and kind of kick us, and also with our deployment app, we're using the Botto API, so we're going to take and kick all our messages into SQS. So all the messages from server, client browsers, whatever, we're going to kick into there, and then we're just going to pull that right into the instance in its tab using the Botto API. So we kind of can push things out and manage with Amazon, but not use the services we don't need to. So for example, we're not going to use IAM so IAM is like these RSA tokens, and I mean that's the kind of stuff too. Is we're a 3-person startup, and if we want, we can have RSA tokens, like United Health Group. But IAM is kind of authentication, but we're not going to use this because our authentication is just our Django wrapper, and so that's almost a nice part about the Django wrapper too. Is now we can really get some user control around. We just know, employees get a deployment app account, and the ultimate sysadmin will get the Amazon login, but no one needs console login to all this different stuff. So we mainly use RDS, and this is really huge too for us because it's Amazon MySQL, and they do all the database updates. So you put your data there, and then you don't worry about it. It's pretty much what you can do. And so and we can just host one RDS instance, and we can put a bunch of different projects in that database. And so we're not doing one database for every single instance. I think we're using USES2. I think is all we're just using one. And I mean our big deployed app right now is a internal application for Ecolab that the technicians across the country use it to fill out forms with a tablet. So it's internal US only, and so we don't have any sites up that are getting. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So and we're trying to iterate towards with multiple AMIs and auto. I've seen some stuff with that where you can specify, your AMIs to auto scale out and split amongst 5 instances. And I think we are going to do that stuff, but not until we need to. And then we're still going to do the separate EC2 instances for most of our sites because we're going to a site for my dad, a site for, and then we're also trying to do client service projects because we've also, with Django and the framework and just where it's at, 100% front-end code websites are just like a gold mine for us because we can find, small business, kind of take a template and, charge $4 or $5 grand for the website and spin it out in 3-4 hours because if you use Django and then save out the front-end code. So any other questions? I know I've been kind of all over the place. Didn't quite have as much time to prepare as I'd hoped. So this is, I guess, GitHub interface. So we were using Git forever. When we started using GitHub, we started actually using the comments a lot more. So we make sure we do really descriptive comments now because really when you do want to go back and you mess something up and you're really just trying to figure it out, we find this to be a really useful reference to kind of just, I want to go back to that commit and dive into the old commits. So GitHub has been super useful for us. Does anyone have best practice use of GitHub? Does anyone use the issue trackers or wiki? We're not using most of these ancillary effects. Pull requests, we don't. I'm not familiar with pull. What is the functionality here? Yeah, I think we are going to start doing that as soon as, we don't have anybody to manage that. Nobody to take code and put it all together. It's just too difficult for us at this point. But, as we get a team member who's more sysadmin oriented exclusively, I think we're definitely going to do that because that's... So we would still tag it though, right? Yeah, and we've kind of evolved, so we started basically just doing, push, pull, stage commit, that's it, not good messages. And so now we're trying to get into tags and topic branches. And we mostly develop locally using Eclipse, and so we just got eGit, and so we, it can just, a typical, and so you can see it's got nice things here. Okay, I'm -2. And then, so it's kind of nice just to be able to do it all local, and then, have multiple local topic branches. And so hopefully, and yeah, we want to get into it. So we're not into our QA mode yet, into continuous debug. It's definitely something we're trying to move towards, and we're hoping once the deploy app is up, that's kind of help make more time for that in general. And we're kind of balancing improving our internal systems with our external deadlines. So it's always a tough. It's definitely something we spend a lot of time trying to improve our own processes for our future productivity, but kind of run out of time sometimes. But I'm gonna look into issues and definitely gonna start using them. Git flow. Cool. So any feedback, improvements, ideas? So I mean, what drove me is, I wanted to use Amazon. Just because I wanted to use Amazon because of all the reasons I was highlighting earlier, because it's cheaper, Django SES because it's the big player. It's like there's a lot of reasons outside deployment I wanted to use Amazon. So and then I just saw that I just saw that app where so spin up a server to EC2, and I thought that was really cool. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, that could be. Why not just wrap a web wrapper around that rather than do these stuff command line? Because I also feel like the more I get into reading forums and stuff, I feel like there's a big divide between front and back end developers. And I know from my Django learning experience personally, I spent 2 months learning Python before I realized Django was not a billion times easier than I was learning stuff I didn't need, just because I didn't know the sysadmin stuff. I didn't know how to, I didn't even know how to spin up a development server. And so I feel like stuff like this is hopefully going to get it to the point where, somebody can just write a code base and not have to worry about, deploying it. So front-end developer. And then I think the more you can kind of expose and force people to do stuff, I think the kind of future of web app development is not these artesian, handcrafted websites for each one. It's like super automated because you can just, MVCs kind of enables it. And I think you're always going to have a lot nicer websites if you're layering complexity. So the next website has this, it's just a little bit better than the last one versus starting from scratch. So. So it just automatically will do the next.
So at Harbor, you have access to your account as a user, and you just put in a service hook, and then what it does is it pulls your code because we just had GitHub as a remote. So it pulls from GitHub, and they have their own Git repository on at Harbor, and then it just deploys using their software to web. So it's really, really good.
They got an API? instead of having a button. So it's basically the service hooks send HTTP requests when there's based on events in Git. That's one application that would be incredibly useful because we're planning on just having a button update Git tags and it goes and checks the Git tags and adds them to database and now we can associate this to the staging branch, this is whatever. But that makes a lot more sense every time. If we can do Git policy every time it's pushed up to the remote branch and if it has a new Git tag, just sends an HTTP request, which is built into our app to do API, just update that instances just to tags. We're definitely going to do that. Thanks for that. What's edge? Your latest commit or the head of your master branch or something like that. Okay, yeah. Cool, yeah, thanks for the feedback, guys. I really appreciate it. And we're still figuring this stuff out, and this is actually, it's not been battle tested by any means. It's just getting up and running. So knowing we've got Django developers in the crowd too, what kind of web stacks are you guys deploying on? Apache, Nginx, or? So do people use Google App Engine? Anybody interested in getting into MVC frameworks that have been doing web dev in a different style? Or any comments on that? What? Cool. Well, I'm not sure what we've got left here. If you guys have questions, more than willing to answer them. And I know I'm not the most technical presenter you guys are going to see today, but appreciate you guys kind of working with me, giving me some feedback, and helping me think through this problem.